Okay, if this video gets a little disjointed along the way, that's because my phone took a ride in the washing machine yesterday, and I'm using a 2007 Handycam and it's giving me fits. Anyway, we need to get to the solenoid. So we're going to take the stock off, we're going to loosen this, we're going to pull the gun apart just a little bit, pop the solenoid cover off, and then we'll be to our solenoid. So let's go ahead and do that. And I've been getting a lot of people asking me, like, they want to buy one of these from me. I don't normally sell these. These are just folks who send them. They're other people's. They send them to me to get modified. So, yeah, there's a little tab that hangs over, so you gotta loosen that to get the two halves apart so you can lift that up and come off. Now we're gonna desolder the solenoid and loosen it there and unscrew it. I apologize in advance for swearing because I know I'm gonna do it. This soldering station is a real pain. It turns off when you're not looking at it. Anyway, I'm going to do this off camera. But yeah, you just want to get in right there on the joint and pull your wires out once everything melts. And then, while it's still warm, get a solder sucker. These things are real cheap and they are awesome. Heat it up over the hole and then suck all the solder out of the hole. That way when you go to resolder, you'll have a nice neat hole that you can just resolder your wire into. That wasn't too bad. All I had to do was turn the camera off and then it started to work right. I guess it's sensitive to cameras as well. So now we're gonna loosen this screw, and that just clamps everything together. There's a little clamp in here, and if you take that clamp out, make sure that the flat side of the flange is facing down. There'll be a mating surface for it there. Now, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, but there's kind of a flat spot right there, and that's kind of common to see. It's from over tightening this screw. And so what we're going to do is we're going to disassemble this. We'll run this through a die and we'll find something to ream out the center of it with. So to get this apart, there's a little pin in here that we need to knock out, and then we can grab a hold of the shaft with something, and this little end, this hammer head, just unscrews. Now these pins are pretty difficult to get out, and you might have a better way of doing it than this, but you can see there's a bigger diameter on one side where it's flattened out and just riveted in, and a smaller on the outside. You just don't want to bend that armature when you're doing it. Yeah, I imagine it could be pressed out. That would be a good way to do it. But we're gonna, and it would be a lot easier to have somebody help you do this, to hold it for you. Wow, that was remarkably easy. Now, you gotta get this off. I'm just gonna grab the back of it. Haven't done this in a while, guys. But yeah, there are a couple of flat sides on the back. There we go. Keep forgetting you're over there. Sorry. Okay, so now we got that off. Don't lose it. Let's get our little O-ring off. Now there's a spring that holds it in. If you pull it and rotate it, kind of unscrew that spring, it'll come right out. Now, this is what we need to look at. You can take your fingernails across it, and you could probably hear that. So we're gonna chuck this thing up and get that really smooth. And while we've got it chucked up, we will see how straight it is. It looks pretty straight to me, which is good. But yeah, we're definitely gonna smooth that out and ream the center of this and run our die over the threads. We also want to get this spring off of there without damaging it. So on this end of it, you can find the end and bring it over to the flat side. Just try to lift it up over. Might need to get something to help you. And then just unscrew it. Don't know how much of that you saw, but there you go. So there's just a little bit of wobble in there, and we don't have an issue with this one being bent. We're gonna leave it like that. All we have to do is clean up those lathe marks. So we're going to just flip it around and use some emery cloth, wet sandpaper on it. Now when you're clamping it, you can also do this in a 1/2-inch cordless drill or corded drill. You just want to be mindful of these flat sides, especially if you're trying to get it concentric by clamping onto this part of it. It's not really going to matter too much for this. And that material, I think it's cast iron. Pretty soft, so just be mindful. Now I'm gonna start out with 1,000 grit and work my way down to 3,000. Now granted, 3,000 is probably a little bit overkill for this. Smooth as a baby's head. And after that, the disc I was recording on filled up and I couldn't record anymore on that camera, and I had to wait till I got a new phone. So here we are. I'll just go over with another solenoid what I did for the rest of that. Okay, now you've still got your solenoid apart, and you want to make sure that it's nice and clean inside. You can blow it out. Maybe get in there with a dry cloth or something. You wouldn't want to put any real heavy solvents in there that can melt plastic, because the inside of this is lined with plastic, so the armature doesn't. I believe it's so it doesn't short out on it. I had one short out on me. That was not fun at all. It was a brand new gun, and just so anyway, make sure that's good and clean inside there. And for this part of it, as far as reaming it out, I think I just took a drill bit and you know, big enough to get in there, pretty close to the inner diameter, turned it on reverse and just spun it real fast, and that took care of any burrs that were on the inside. Now this actually curls over, so there's like a little rim on the inside, so the shaft is only touching on that rim, so that's really the only part that you need to be cognizant of when you're doing that. And you don't want to widen it out so your armature is making contact with more than that rim. And for the threads here, these are an 8 by 0.75 thread, and you could just take a die and run it down the threads and back. And before you put everything back together, I found a use for this stuff, and in here I believe it's really beneficial inside here. So yeah, I've been using this on the insides of solenoids. You don't want anything in there like grease or anything, because you can get stuff stuck in there and it's just going to land in your grease and get stuck. Anytime you have your gun apart to where you can get to the solenoid, it's not a bad idea to blow some compressed air through the back of it and push this forward and try to get some in there, just anytime that you've got the cover off and have access to the solenoid. Then when you go to put your spring back on the armature, you can just thread it through it, and then when you put your armature back in here, you can tuck the open end of the spring underneath this and just work it around. Just be careful not to bend it, and don't forget your O-ring that goes on here. And yeah, then pin it back, hammer it so that's riveted in there and it's not going to come out, and then put everything back together. And I tell you, Bruce told me about this, not all into detail, but just about taking a solenoid apart and cleaning it, and I kind of dismissed it, and I only recently started doing it. And then sometimes I'll get like a problem gun that just doesn't really want to go up to 4K or whatever I'm trying to get it up to, and that was the case several weeks ago, and I decided to try this, and man, what a difference it made. I guess in the past what was happening is that I would just shoot it so many times that this would just wear smooth and it'd start working, and that was kind of the break-in process. But to go in here and go ahead and take care of all that before you got to shoot it, 5,000 times, I think that's definitely well worth it. All right, guys, later. Oh, Merry Christmas if I don't see y'all until then, and Happy New Year as well. Later.